Welcome back everyone. Lex Alexis would like to pass you a message saying, please like and subscribe to this video, and let's try and hit 150 subscribers by the next month. As with the Storyteller, that's me, I'm here to do my job, which is to read stories of our beautiful British football clubs. Last chapter we learned the roller coaster of Barnsley Football Club. If you thought that was a roller coaster, then this will feel like a skydive. We are talking about the prestigious club, the fallen Yorkshire Giants of Leeds United. Tell me, what club would you like to be featured in chapter 3 to this eternal book? Allow your destiny to choose wisely. This chapter may include references from chapter 1 entitling Barnsley's Fairy Tale. If you do not want to be spoiled, click on the mystical eye on the top right so that you can start the book from scratch. If all who are left watching already read chapter 1, thank you, and let's continue with Football Fairy Tales on chapter 2, which is the story of Leeds United. This chapter starts as a flashback in 1904. Barnsley Football Club was struggling with financial difficulties in Division 2. Within that time, another club in Yorkshire, 23 miles from here, was in developments. Eventually established in 1904, a new football club was born, named as Leeds City Football Club, where they adopted the kit colours of dark blue, white and yellow. The club moved into Ellen Road after Holbeck Rugby Club folded in 1904. Their badge had a deep historical meaning as it was the coat of arms for Leeds, which dates all the way back in the 17th century. Leeds City Football Club were elected in the Football League in 1905 to Division 2. This gave Leeds City Football Club a chance to compete with the best. They started well, finishing 6th place in the 1905-06 season. The original secretary was given the first managerial role in 1904, which is by Gilbert Gillies. City didn't do quite so well in 1906-07, but they did manage to sign centre forward Billy McLeod from Lincoln. He was a reliable goal scorer, scoring 15 goals in just 23 appearances in that league season. McLeod went on to score a total of 171 goals in 289 appearances. The 1907-08 season was no better than the previous year, with Leeds City finishing 12th. Manager Gilbert Gillies' contract was not renewed. They appointed Herbert Chapman, who guided the club to their highest position in the league, which was 4th in this division. Just like Barnsley Football Club, Leeds City Football Club stopped playing football following World War I. During that World War period, the club actually won several wartime honours, one of them being the League Championship Cup in 1917-1918. That 4-year gap seemed to rejuvenate the club, where Chapman's men made a very useful start of the season in 1919-1920. 10 points from 8 games, with McLeod already hitting 9 goals. But then, things went horribly wrong. We had administration being a dark period last chapter, but this chapter at the start makes it one step further with Leeds City Football Club entering its dissolution. Following the conclusion of the war, a scandal ensued and the club was accused of financial irregularities. This included breaking the ban on paying players during the war. That led to the club's dissolution in 1919. This paid the ultimate price for the club. Leeds City Football Club, born in 1904, died in 1919 at the young tender age of 15. They were expelled from the Football League entirely, with only 8 games played in the 1919-1920 season. This harsh punishment was mostly handed down due to the behaviour of the club's directors, who refused to cooperate with FA inquiry. On the 17th of October 1919, an auction was held where the playing staff and the squad. Port Vale managed to take over the remaining fixtures and completed the 1919-1920 season. What is scary, that an extinction of another club during the season occurred 100 years later, a century to the day. My thoughts and prayers go to Bury Football Club. Very shortly after Leeds City were expelled, a new football club from Leeds was formed, Leeds United. They were formed in the 17th of October 1990, which makes sense because this season they're wearing their 100th anniversary badge. This was under the management of former player Dick Ray, and they began playing in the Midland League, taking the vacated Leeds City with reserves. In 1920, Leeds United were acquired by Huddersfield Town's chairman Hilton Crowther. Crowther planned to amalgamate Huddersfield Town and Leeds United, but the public outcry in the Huddersfield press prevented this. Eventually, Crowther was released from Huddersfield so he can concentrate concentrate solely on Leeds United. Eventually, in the 31st of May 1920, Leeds United were elected into the Football League. Due to the connection with Huddersfield, Leeds adopted the home colours of Huddersfield as their first home kit, blue and white. Their first manager was Dick Ray, but chairman Hilton Crofer wasted no time in making sure that the Huddersfield boss, Arthur Fairclough, was his replacement. Ray Fairfall was then Fairclough's assistant. Leeds' first fixture after their election to the league was against Port Vale, the side that took over from Leeds City Football Club's fixtures. They lost 2-0. However, 7 days later, they recorded their first victory in the corresponding fixture at Ellen Road, which ended Leeds United 3, Port Vale 1. Leeds struggled to make an impact in their first season in the league, eventually finishing 14th place. 1923 and 1924, Leeds won their first honour, finishing as champions of the Second Division Championship. Players in that winning squad included Bert Duffield and Early Hart, to name a few. Leeds were given their first chance to compete in the First Division, but Leeds struggled during their first season, finishing in 18th place. 1926 to 1927, Leeds were finally relegated back to the Second Division and Fairclough resigned as manager. He was replaced by former assistant who left Doncaster, Dick Ray. After that relegation, Leeds were promoted back to Division 1, but then relegated back to Division 2 within 4 years, showing similar traits of Barnsley's yo-yo trend. In 1934, Leeds decided to change their kit, leaving Huddersfield's traits behind them, and decided to adopt the yellow, blue and white colours in respect of the fallen Leeds City Football Club, even keeping their badge. Throughout the 30s, Leeds were a very inconsistent side, having some great finishes up to 5th and being title challengers, to slumping all the way down in 19th place and narrowly avoiding relegation. It's easy to say that it's entertaining to watch Leeds because you don't know what kind of Leeds squad you're going to get. Before World War II, Leeds finished in a mid-table 13th place. After the war though, Leeds struggled. They broke an unwanted record, picking up the least away points with only 1 point in 21 away matches, and their final points in total was 18 points. This resulted in Billy Hampson being sacked and being replaced by Willis Edwards, a former player at the club. Next year proved to be a scare as Leeds were even close to having back-to-back relegations. Following the scare, Edwards was moved back to post-assistant manager and being replaced by Major Frank Buckley. Throughout the late 40s and the early 50s, Buckley had intentions to get rid of the deadwood of the team. First season was a struggle, however, in 3 seasons they finished 5th, 5th and then 6th. The board, however, were losing patience in Buckley, failing to deliver promotion, and Buckley was left frustrated himself with the lack of funds. 1 season later, 1952-53, Leeds finished 10th, which resulted in Buckley to resign and sign for Walsall Town. Buckley was then replaced by England legend Rick Carter, but the new manager caused unrest among the players. Team spirit completely suffered in his management role because he lavished all his attention on Joel Charles. In the 1954-55 season, the club managed to settle down Carter coming in and eventually finished 4th, missing out on promotion by only 1 point. The season later was vital for Leeds as they finished 2nd, division runners-up, returning to the First Division for the first time since 1947. However, in the build-up was nothing less a disaster for Leeds United. Leeds' return to First Division in 1956-57 saw them finish a credible 8th place with John Charles playing a pivotal role. However, in September 1956, we saw the first of the many disasters that Leeds United had. The first one being that a fire was gutted at the West Stand at Ellen Road. It was so ferocious that large sections of the pitch were scorched by heat. Blaze consumed kit, club records, physiotherapy equipment, everything. Damage was estimated with £100,000 and the club's insurance cover had been woefully inadequate. In order to try and pay the funds, Carter was reluctant, but he had to sell John Charles. He was sold to Juventus with a then world record fee of £65,000. The loss of such an important pivotal player reflected performances on the pitch. The following season, in 1957-58, saw Leeds finish in 17th. The club's directors then decided not to renew Carter's contract after just 1 season in the top flight. Bill Lambton then took over as acting manager in the 58-59 season, but he had no experience of running a football club, and he's not had success in the coach and had little respect among the players and playing staff. A player rebellion saw the board sack Lambton in January 1959, but Lambton's main legacy was signing the former England international Don Revie, who was then ending at his playing career. Don Revie will be a character that will be very important later on in the chapter. Lambton's eventual successor was Jack Taylor, who had managed Queen's Park Rangers without conspicuous success. This resulted in the club being relegated to the second division at the end of the 1959-60 season. Taylor fared no better in the lower division and resigned in March 1961, only to be replaced by Don Revie. What was achieved in the next 13 years under Don Revie no one could have ever predicted. Under Revie, Leeds enjoyed their most successful period, yet his stewardship started in adverse conditions when the club was in financial difficulty. In the 61-62 season, only a win in the final game managed to save the club from the relegation from the third division. You think, why did Leeds keep with him? Revie revolutionised the club. They backed him, bringing in some experienced coaches and implementing a new family atmosphere within the club, who were previously in turmoil and rebellion. A couple of seasons later, in 1964, this new team won promotion once more to the first division. Leeds were like a duck to water and made an immediate impact. They began the season with a scintillating 4-2 victory over defending champions Liverpool. They were finished only second to Bubsy's Manchester United on goal difference. Revie continued to play the cards right at Leeds. The 1966-67 season saw Leeds finish in 4th place in the league. Leeds spent the 67-68 season chasing 4 trophies. Leeds managed to win their first top-level honour when they eventually won the Bears Cup over the veteran Hungarian side Ferencváros. Leeds were the first British team to ever win this trophy. But the glory doesn't stop there. Leeds won the First Division Championship for the first time in the 1968-69 season. They only lost 2 league games and were unbeaten at home, which was the best record in the 20th century. During the season, Leeds broke so many top-flight records, including most points won, most home points, most wins, most home wins, fewest defeats, and only 26 goals conceded, which is absolutely insane. The beginning of the 69-70 season, Don Revie completed the signing of Alan Clark from Leicester. I'm sure you remember how important he was when he worked with Barnsley Football Club, but he was an integral part in continuing Leeds' glory days. In that season, Leeds only won the Charity Shield, unfortunately, but their consistency of looking like they could win anything amazed teams. There was a real fear factor with Leeds United. This was highlighted when Revie was awarded the Manager of the Year in that season. The following season saw Leeds finish runners-up in the league, but in very controversial circumstances. This is the second incident of Leeds United. With 4 games to play, Leeds were 2 points clear at the top of the league. Whilst playing West Brom, Leeds had a Mick Jones goal disallowed, and later in the game, a Leeds pass was intercepted by West Brom player Tony Brown, and Brown paused as his teammate Colin Sudgett was running back from an offside position. The linesman flagged for offside and the majority of players stopped when they saw that the flag was raised. However, referee Ray Tinkler overruled it, allowing Brown to play the ball to Jeff Astill, who scored what proved to be the winning goal. Revie and Leeds fans were so enraged at the decision that there was a pitch invasion and there was a protest. Consequently, the FA banned the Leeds from playing their first 5 home games from the following season at home. Despite winning all their remaining games, Leeds lost the title to Arsenal by 1 point, and doing so recorded the record number of points of 2nd place. There was consolation though, as Leeds won the Fairs Cup for the 2nd time, beating Juventus over 2 legs, Alan Clark scoring a very crucial goal. Another controversial in Don Revie's time as Leeds United manager was in 1972-73, Leeds played AC Milan in the UEFA Cup final. There was speculation of Revie leaving for Everton, where Everton were the best team around in England at the time, but Revie dismissed the rumours. Milan went 1-0 up, however the rest of the game was filled with dodgy referee decisions, including sending off Norman Hunter, 2 penalty appeals and continuous fouling left unpunished by referee Christos Mikis. The match ended with missiles being thrown at the Milan players and the match officials by a Greek crowd. The referee Christos Mikis was subsequently banned from refereeing for life by UEFA. And despite constant appeals by Leeds United, AC Milan were never penalised. The next season was going to be an emotional season. It was Don Revie's final season in charge. He decided that this was going to be his final season in charge as Leeds, 1973-74, and it was a memorable league for Leeds United as they recorded their best ever league position by winning the league championship again. Revie attempted for the side to go through a whole league campaign without getting beaten. They went on a 29 unbeaten streak, eventually losing away to Stoke City. This was a record of an unbeaten start to a league campaign, only beaten by Arsenal's Invincibles. In total, Leeds just lost 4 league games and remained in the first place for almost the entire campaign. At the end of the season, Don Revie left to become England manager. Let's go through what Don Revie achieved in 13 years as manager. 2 Football League First Division titles, 1 FA Cup, 1 League Cup, 2 Intercity Fairs Cups, 1 Football League Second Division title, and 1 Charity Shield. Take a bow, Don Revie. The replacement of Revie was always going to be near impossible. Don Revie had recommended Johnny Gills as his replacement, however the Leeds board instead appointed one of England's most successful and outspoken managers, Brian Clough, who had guided Derby County to the League Championship in 1972, where Leeds lost by only 1 point. Clough was a very outspoken critic of Revie's sides. There was even talk that Clough told the players to throw his medals away because he said they won by cheating. Leeds' start to that campaign was very poor, with only 1 victory and 2 draws from his first 6 games, leaving the club 19th in the First Division. Shortly after an emergency board meeting was held, and in September 1974, Clough was sacked only 44 days in charge. Clough then went on to do much greater things and be Nottingham Forest's most successful manager ever. Clough was replaced by Jimmy Armfield in October, who stabilised the club, who in that time had another controversial UEFA Cup final against Bayern Munich. Leeds had a goal disallowed for offside and did not get 2 penalty appeals. Leeds fans rioted once again, which resulted Leeds getting a 3-year European ban. The board were impatient and wanted greater success from Armfield, so they dismissed him and replaced him with Celtic manager Jock Stein. Now this was the start of the first notable curse of Leeds United. Stein was only there for 44 days, just like Brian Clough, where he left to manage the Scottish national team. He was replaced by player Alan Clark, which was obviously later after Alan Clark achieved such great things with Barnsley Football Club. But despite Leeds surviving in his first season in charge, Leeds slumped and were relegated. Clark was sacked and replaced by former teammate Eddie Gray. During this time, Leeds fans got an unwanted reputation from the country, which tarnished the club's names and the big transfer targets. Incidents of football hooliganism were very often. Clark's spending had left Leeds in a very precarious financial situation, and Gray was forced to concentrate on youth development to rebuild the team. 3 seasons later, Leeds were in a promotion battle, taken to the final day of the season but lost 1-0 away to Birmingham. However, that game will also be remembered by the wrong reasons by both clubs, due to a high-profile hooliganism incident at St Andrews. Leeds fans rioted the game, causing a wall to collapse, crushing a 15-year-old boy to death. 96 policemen were injured. Hundreds and thousands of pounds worth of damage was caused by vandalism and graffiti. The collapse wall also crushed several parked motor vehicles beyond repair. The following season, after this dreadful incident, Leeds had a terrible start and the Leeds curse was taking its toll. Gray was sacked. Revie's captain Billy Bremner took over. He was sacked after Leeds finished in 21st, narrowly avoiding relegation. This introduced Howard Wilkinson, who had a great reputation to be a second division manager, but no one could have expected the turnaround in fortune he gave. Wilkinson was key to get Leeds promoted, and he did that in his first full season in charge in the 1989-90 season. In a period of 3 years, he achieved that by attracting players like Vinnie Jones, Gary Speed and Eric Cantona. They finished 4th in their first return in the top flight. The Yorkshire Giant was waking from its slumber. It was truly wakened when Leeds pipped Manchester United to the First Division Championship, the last one before it was rebranded as the Premier League. The title was secured in the penultimate game of the season when Leeds defeated Yorkshire rivals Sheffield United, and Manchester United also lost to Liverpool. Leeds made a poor start to their 1996-97 season. After a 4-0 home defeat by Manchester United, Wilkinson had his contract terminated. This was a dangerous decision. Was the Leeds curse going to resume with the introduction of a new manager? Leeds controversially awarded the management role to George Graham. If you don't know why that's controversial, Graham had recently finished a 12-month ban from football for accepting illegal payments at his former club Arsenal. Leeds finished 11th in his first season in charge. He made key transfers like Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and Harry Kewell. Leeds finished his following season in 5th place, but controversially, Graham left Leeds within weeks in the 1998-99 season to manage London rivals Tottenham Hotspur. Leeds wanted Martin O'Neill to be their manager, who was working miracles with Leicester Football Club with an overachieving squad. However, Leeds had David O'Leary, George Graham's assistant, as manager. O'Leary introduced promising youngsters like Jonathan Woodgate and Alan Smith. David O'Leary got Leeds to finish 4th in his first full season. Following season 1999-2000, Leeds improved and finished 3rd. Unfortunately, Leeds' image was tarnished once again. This involved two current championship managers, Jonathan Woodgate and Lee Bowyer. In January 2000, a student was put in hospital with severe injuries. The trial of Bowyer and Woodgate took nearly 2 years to resolve. Bowyer was cleared and Woodgate convicted of affray and sentenced to community service. In that season, Leeds also reached their first European semi-final in 25 years and were paired against Turkish giants Galatasaray. The first leg of the semi-final was played at Istanbul, with Leeds losing the game 2-0. But once again, controversy happened. The game was overshadowed by the death of 2 Leeds United fans who were stabbed to death in rioting the night before the game. The first season where I entered the world in 2000 and 2001, Leeds went on an epic Champions League run playing against Lazio, AC Milan, Barcelona, and eventually lost to Valencia in the semis. Leeds also finished that season finishing 4th. The 2001-02 season continued investment gaining Robbie Fowler. Leeds started well, but had dreadful form in the tail end of the season, finishing in 5th. This meant missing out on qualification for the UEFA Champions League. O'Leary therefore was sacked at the end of the season. Reasons given that despite heavy investment in the squad, Leeds had failed to qualify for Champions League for 2 consecutive seasons. Now that overspending is going to be covered later on in the chapter as well, and the controversy of their chairman Peter Ridsdale will also be discussed soon. As Leeds failed to qualify for the competition, there was simply not enough money coming in to repay the debt. The first thing they had to do to try and fix their financial trouble was sell their main players, the big one being Rio Ferdinand to Manchester United. £30 million at that time was the world record for a defender. On July 2002, former England and Tottenham coach Terry Venables was unveiled as O'Leary's successor. Ferdinand's departure was soon followed by Robbie Keane, who joined Tottenham for £7 million. The season started well, but they had a dreadful turn into the season again, finishing in 16th place. Reports of the club's precarious financial position continued to circulate. In January 2003, more key players were departed. This included Robbie Fowler, Olivier Dacourt, Lee Bowyer and Jonathan Woodgate. The sale of Woodgate really upset Venables, who'd been promised by Ridsdale, their chairman, that the player would not be sold. Tensions mounted between the pair, eventually leading Venables to be sacked, who was replaced by Peter Reid. By then, Leeds were in danger of relegation, but Reid managed to save Leeds from the drop with a 3-2 away win to Arsenal, which managed to win the title for Manchester United in the 2002-03 season. Peter Ridsdale then resigned from the Leeds board following tensions and was replaced by Professor John Mackenzie, who had to try and turn around a club with debts in the excess of 100 million. A very unsuccessful start to the 03-04 season saw Leeds just collect 8 points from the club's first 12 Premiership fixtures. After a 6-1 defeat to Portsmouth, Reid was dismissed. Former manager Eddie Gray was appointed as a caretaker manager until the end of the season. Gray continued the trend of recent years in rebuilding players, including the likes of James Milner and Aaron Lennon. This period of financial difficulty resulted in difficulty in takeover offers. This also led with the team struggling on the field, and Leeds were relegated to the Championship at the end of the 03-04 season. Following confirmation of the club's relegation, Gray's reign as manager was terminated. His former assistant Kevin Blackwell was appointed caretaker manager for the final match of the season and then permanent manager, another very key player to focus on. The Leeds curse was officially back. At the end of the season, other members of the team, for instance Paul Robinson, Dominic Matteo, Mark Viduka and Alan Smith, were all transferred, even James Milner. The 21st of January 2005, Krasner announced the sale of a 50% stake to Ken Bates for $10 million. Bates became the new club's chairman, replacing Krasner. This investment effectively saved Leeds United from going to administration. In 2004-05, Leeds finished 13th. The following season, Leeds won a playoff place. Leeds managed to beat Preston in the semi-final, but with the final played at Millennium Stadium, they played against Watford and lost 3-0. In the 10th of September 2006, Kevin Blackwell announced that within a year, the club would be debt-free. This was just over 2 years before Leeds had managed to be 121 million in debt. Those lies effectively nearly killed the club. In September 2006, after a poor start to the season, Kevin Blackwell's contract was terminated. John Carver, who claims he's the best coach in the Premier League, was put as caretaker manager. The club went on a run of 5 straight defeats with 17 goals conceded before Carver was dismissed after just 3 weeks in charge. That saw Leeds crash in the foot of the championship. The man who they turned to try and make them survive was Dennis Wise, the very small man, who took charge on 25th of October 2006. In the 20th of November 2006, Kevin Blackwell was suing the club for wrongful dismissal, and it was confirmed he was sacked for gross misconduct on the grounds of negative comments made in the press about the club's finances. And by May 2007, Leeds were relegated from the championship after entering voluntary administration. The first time Leeds have ever entered in the 3rd Division, League One. This gave Leeds a 10-point deduction at the start of their first season in League One. Administration had been predicted for some time due to crippling debts during Peter Ridsdale's chairmanship and O'Leary's spending. KPMG, who I'm aspiring to try and work for, were appointed as administrators, and within minutes of entering administration, sold the club to Leeds United Football Club Limited, owned by Ken Bates, Sean Harvey and Mark Taylor. The 1st of June 2007, 75.2% of the creditors voted in favour of Ken Bates' bid, with just minutes remaining of the 28-day period during which creditors could challenge the buyout by Ken Bates. Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs lodged a formal challenge, and the club was put up for sale again. After due deliberation, in 11th of July 2007, KPMG revealed that once again they had chosen Ken Bates' bid. The league eventually sanctioned the sale to Bates, without the club going through a CVA under the exceptional circumstances rule, but imposed a 15-point deduction due to Leeds not following Football League rules on clubs exiting administration. Leeds had to spend 3 years in League One before they got promoted in 2009-2010. They achieved this with Simon Grayson's first full season at the club. Leeds were finally promoted to the Championship as they finished 2nd in League One behind Norwich City. In the League Cup, they also brought an excellent performance, narrowly losing 1-0 against Liverpool, and in the FA Cup they caused a major upset in the 3rd round, beating then Premiership champions Manchester United 1-0 at Old Trafford, with Jermaine Beckford scoring the goal. Since then, Leeds have been in the Championship to today for 10 years, and this time Leeds had 2 other ownerships. In 2014, Salino's company and Nonoa purchased 75% of the club's shares. However, within a year, Massimo Salino was guilty of tax evasion. A couple of years later, Andrea Radrizzani purchased 50% stake from Massimo Salino. On May 23, 2017, Radrizzani announced a 100% buyout of Leeds United, buying the remaining 50% shares from previous co-owner Massimo Salino, with Radrizzani taking full ownership at the club. 3 managers later in Radrizzani's era, Gary Monk, Thomas Christensen and Paul Heckingbottom, we are introduced to the manager that is taking charge of Leeds United today, Marcelo Bielsa, who is one of the few Championship managers who can say that they managed to beat Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. Immediately when he joined Leeds, they were so close to being promoted with a new training philosophy, new mindset, new tactics, spying on teams, and Leeds was a pig's whisker away from being promoted to the Premier League. However, they lost the playoff semi-final against Derby County under Frank Lampard. Then we get to where we are today, where Leeds are first place in the championship with 1 point ahead of second place West Brom and 7 points ahead of third place Fulham in the final playoff place. Is this the beginning of Leeds' curse ending? Is the sleeping giant almost woken up again? Time will tell. Leeds are potentially 7 wins away from being promoted. Will they get European football again? Only time will tell. Could they even dare try and challenge a league title, a Premier League title? We'll have to wait and see. And that concludes chapter 2 of Football Fairy Tales. Thank you so much for listening to this very long chapter. Tell me, what club do you want covered in chapter 3? Let me know in the comments down below. Final message from Lex Alexis: please give this video a like, a share and a subscription. All of that would really make him smile, and as a storyteller I would really appreciate it too. Thank you guys so much for watching. As Lex Alexis would say, you guys are legendary if you saw the end of this voice book. As always, stay safe, keep healthy and take care.